Hey there, and welcome to the Catching Up with Casey show, where we talk about anything and everything that has to do with building cohesive, vision-driven teams. I am Casey Watts, school impact strategist and the host of this show. Now, if you are here, then you inevitably are an instructional leader who wants to make change happen, even when change seems impossible. And you can do that if you have cohesive, vision-driven teams that have done clarity work. They know exactly where they're headed and how they're going to get there. These teams have done identity work, and they've built their self and social awareness skills. And they have done collaboration work, and they know how to move beyond faux collaboration to get to true collaboration where change happens and where people get on board. I'm so excited to bring to you conversations that help you to do exactly that. The work that needs to be done to build cohesive, vision-driven teams. Now, with all of that said, let's dive into today's conversation. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Catching Up with Casey show. I'm super excited that you are here. This is episode 84, and I am joined by Jana Lee. Jana, welcome to the show.
So excited to be here. Always very grateful to be in this space with you. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And tonight, guys, we are talking about the hot topic of PLCs. And tonight's title of the episode is 3 non-negotiables for setting up successful PLCs. We're going to be diving into that. And one of the things that I put in the description is no one wants PLCs to suck, right? And it's true for everyone. Nobody wants that. Teachers don't want that. Administrators don't want that. Anyone who's facilitating any kind of PLC team meeting, we don't want them to suck. So hopefully tonight you're going to walk away with some ideas to make sure that that does not happen. So Jana, let's dive in and tell our audience a little bit about who you are, what your aspirations are, where you're coming from.
Sure. So in just about a week, I'll be Dr. Jana Lee, which is very exciting. I know. PhD in reading, language, and literacy. I started my journey in the classroom. I was a special education teacher in a high-needs school district in the South Bronx of New York. After being a classroom teacher and working with, in several teacher leadership roles, I moved into instructional coaching. I was a founding member of an all-girls school, and there I developed our special education department, moved into curriculum development, continued professional development and workshops, and then went into the coaching and consulting world full time. Met a crossroads where it was either becoming a principal or moving into consulting. And I wanted to spread the word of data-driven instruction and effective and efficient systems and protocols. And I felt like I could have more of an impact meeting with as many school districts and school leaders as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it so much. And it's funny. I feel like so often when I talk to fellow consultants, the trajectory is similar in that you hear so many of them say, I thought about being a principal. I got my principal certification, all of the things, but it just didn't pan out that way because I needed to take a different route. And you never know what it's going to blossom into. And so you have done so much work. Like if people were to go to Instagram, which you are on Instagram at Jana_C_Lee. Is that true?
That's true. That's a true statement.
It is a true story, guys.
It's something. I think it's Jana. It might be Jana _. It might be Jana . Honestly, I feel like I should know that at that point. But yes, you'll find me.
Yeah, Jana Lee. So if you go over to Instagram or any other social media platform, you are going to notice Jana dropping truth bombs all over the place about data and assessment. And the last time that you were on here, I think we had the conversation about the word data versus data.
Oh, do you know I still get a chuckle when I think about that. And I I'm interchangeable. Like,
Okay.
ambidextrous people, I'm interchangeable with my data and my data. And I don't know what I use or when I use it.
Okay. Yeah. We'll just say we're ambidextrous with words.
Yes, exactly. I love that. I love that
Okay.
approach.
It shows our high intelligence.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Okay. So tonight, the reason you guys are here is to learn about setting up successful PLCs. Let's start, Jana, by getting clear on what we mean by PLCs. So when you come at this conversation, tell us what you envision PLCs are for schools.
PLCs for schools are a dedicated time where teachers have an opportunity to collaborate around a common goal that's based on a challenge that they are seeing, observing, being part of within their school community. It's an opportunity for them, when provided a structure and a framework to do so. It's a time where you can really teachers can not only hear about what each other are going through and the challenges and obstacles that they face, but it also can lead to very solution oriented conversations that are teacher driven and teacher centric. And so often, I think we see leaders, I'm seeing it on the ground, and I hear of it from others, leaders who are the ones in charge of the PLCs. And when leaders have already so much on their plate, for teachers, it becomes another thing that they have to do. And that buy-in and that motivation is missing. So when teachers become the fabric of the PLC I'm going to go back to proper systems and support and a structure, then teachers take ownership over the work. And so it really is very generally just a dedicated time, school-based teams, grade team meetings for teachers to come together around a single goal.
Yeah. And I want to clarify something too, because you just said school based or like grade level. It sounds like your teams can be flexible and should be flexible.
Absolutely. I've been in schools where PLCs, and we'll dig more into how you sort of unearth what your PLC should focus on. But I've been in schools where PLCs are solely focused on parent engagement. Okay. So teachers are finding solutions on how do we engage our parents, or we're writing parent emails, or we're calling parents during that time. And it's a 30-minute window that this PLC moves, 3 times a month. I think it was. I'm in another school where they meet for 90 minutes every other month, and it's around student work analysis. That PLC or school-based team is going to look different from the one that's focused on parent engagement for 30 minutes, right? But ultimately, teachers are gathering around a common purpose with a common goal in mind, and they've been provided the supports to be able to accomplish that autonomously from a leader having to lead the conversation or lead the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting we talk about this tonight. I mean, the timing was perfect. We actually planned this episode, it was several weeks ago.
Yes.
But as we're getting closer to the school year, I'm starting to see people post about ideas for staff meetings and PD and grade level team meetings and all of these things. And one of the things that I've noticed being posted, and I've seen this multiple times, not just recently, but over the years, is people will post like, what are topics you're covering during PLCs?
Mm-hmm.
But that is an indicator that we're approaching PLCs in the wrong way. We're not treating it as a professional learning community. We're treating it as a PD session. It's really not meant to be that. Yes, you are going to professionally learn together, but it's not meant to cover like minuscule topics over a period of time.
Exactly. Yeah. It's more of a problem-based grouping almost like for our students, it's inquiry. It is teachers providing solutions to problems or challenges together. Take, for example, parent engagement. That time over, in some instances, that PLC is going to meet to discuss strategies to meet, to meet with parents who are unreachable. And other times it's just going to be dedicated for, hey, listen, this 30 minutes, we're shooting off emails to parents, right? But collectively, they're problem solving or solving the issue of not having enough time to be able to engage parents on their own, right? Within their own schedules. So they're using that dedicated pocket to take care of the work. And when teachers are provided the framework by which to engage in a PLC, where it's not the facilitation of, new material or sharing out of, how-tos, sometimes it might be that. But when teachers are leading that work, it really does become organically a problem-based, a collaborative effort as opposed to leader-driven professional development and training.
Yeah. It's a process that we take on. It's a mindset that we take on. It's a way of being that we take on. It's a culture of collaboration that we're trying to develop in our schools. So let's now dig into those 3 non-negotiables for setting up successful PLCs. You want to tell us, you can go about it how you want. You can tell us the 3 things up front, and then we can dive into them, or you can just dive into each of them.
I'll give all 3, and then we'll dive into each one. So number 1, use the data. The data drives the type of PLC or the focus of the PLC that you're going for. We'll talk more about that in a moment, okay? Number 2, create a vision statement. Your PLC has to have a clear purpose. It has to be insightful, and it has to be motivational. We'll talk more about that as well. And then last but not least, develop a framework for every PLC meeting. Okay. So number 1, when we talk about using the data, I'm not only talking about student performance data. I'm talking about the data that reveals that there is an issue within the school community or a challenge or a barrier. That might be data related to increase in student referrals. That might be data related to behavioral issues from students, right? Your behavioral reports might be going up. Suspension cases might be increasing. That might be climate and culture data from your teachers, teacher survey, environmental data from parents. If parents are being surveyed, that information revealing, the climate and culture of your school community. It might be data related to meeting IEP goals. It might be data related to teacher walkthroughs. All of your data sources, absentee data, I'm not sure if I said that. I know that the absences are a really crucial challenge right now. And a lot of leaders are trying to navigate how to increase their attendance rates regularly.
Yep.
That's not just a leadership problem, that's a school community problem. And your PLCs can be part of the solution to that. So when it's grounded in data, 2 things happen. 3 things really. The data becomes your why. And I'm not just talking about numbers and figures and state performance and math and ELA. Some data points are going to point significantly to, okay, we've got to raise our reading scores. So our teachers are going to focus on closing specific reading gaps using student inquiry. I'm working with the school right now on that exact thing. But it doesn't have to be academic achievement, right? The data, though, is going to be your why. And it's going to be it's going to underpin what you tell your teachers, why this is important and why we are doing it this way. So not only does it not have to be quantitative, all about the numbers, but it can be qualitative as well. So when you bring teacher voice into the why, right? Well, you shared and teacher surveys shared this and teacher reports shared this and walkthrough and snapshots shared this, then teachers become part of the reason why the PLC is necessary. So that's why we want to use data, number one. The other reason why we want to use data is because it becomes the baseline by which we can compare if the PLCs are impactful or effective along the way. So if we see we started here and this is why we decided we need to use this, then we've got something to progress monitor along the way. And if that data looks different on a quarterly, midway basis, or however long you want to go in between measuring that progress, if you see trends ticking upward, then that means that things are happening and working. I've had some schools through the year decide, listen, what we've got going is working really well, and in January we're actually going to shift our PLC focus onto the next thing, the next priority that we need to start tackling. So that data provides the baseline.
Yeah.
It provides transparency to your teachers as to why, and it provides the baseline. So that's number one.
Yeah. So would it be fair to say that your data your data is the driver, right? Like your data is going to drive who is part of the team, who's part of that PLC. Your data is going to drive what the focus is. Your data is going to drive what your goal is and how you're getting there. Your data is going to drive really like how you are noticing progress along the way. Like that's
absolutely. And listen, I have spoken to leaders who will say, yeah, but Jana, it can't be all about the numbers and it can't be all about the data. But any qualitative or anecdotal or observations or conversations that you're having is part of that data piece.
Right.
So I'm going to reiterate, it's not just about academic achievement for students. You might see classroom management as an issue, student behaviors, like I mentioned earlier, right? Suspensions, increasing attendance. That points to social and emotional learning, not so much academic learning, but we know that the two are so intertwined. So your PLC might start through that social and emotional lens and slowly move more towards the academic side of things if they see that, again, the data is pointing towards a progression of whatever interventions and strategies as a PLC they've decided to implement.
Yeah. And what I love about what you're saying is and I know you're going to get into this next when you talk about creating a vision statement, but we're focused on this data. We're focused on this area until we notice we have made progress. And then we can decide after a period of time focused on this data and focused on collaborating around this data if we need to shift or pivot and focus on something else.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
So then you've used the data.
Yep.
Now what?
Now you create a vision statement. I've seen this happen two ways. You do it as a leadership team, or you share the data and you create the vision with your teachers. Okay. Your vision statement is going to provide let me circle back for a moment. I've seen PLCs start out really strong and there's a lot of like hoorah behind it. And then when things get busy, scheduling issues occur, there's festivals and parties during the holidays, the PLCs are the first thing to go, right? Yeah. So that vision statement provides sort of it's a statement that says this is important. This is important. And when things get busy and the PLC would typically be the first thing to go, this vision statement grounds us in ensuring that it remains a priority. I've also heard leaders say, yeah, but we have these, but it just becomes a time for teachers to whine and complain and it's not effective. This vision statement will allow you to provide feedback during those times, right? Or allow to sort of streamline the conversations with your teachers. So if your teachers are whining or are complaining or are upset, if it's related to the vision statement in some capacity, then Is it that they're just firing off their challenges, right? Or is it truly that they're wasting time? And it allows you as a leader to decide the difference. Teachers are human, and sometimes they just need a space to be like, I'm done. What are you seeing? Are you done too? Let's talk about it. And if it relates to what the vision statement is, then as a leader, sometimes in reading the room, we have to say, okay, listen, they're talking about the issue, and sometimes this just has to be what it is. But if it's not, and it's off the beaten path, and it's off of, the focus of the work, then as a leader, you step in and it's, you go back to that vision statement. This is why we're here. This is what we do. If you want to take a non-top down approach, try to create this with your teachers and tweak it as a leadership team, or allow your teachers to share, what would this look like collectively? Let us take some of that feedback and bring it back to leadership to create the vision. I'm doing this on Wednesday with the team. We're going to be digging through the data on day one, and then day two, we're going to use the data to develop a vision statement. And that really allows everybody to move in the same direction forward with the same understanding. It's almost like a contract, a non-contract contract, right? Yeah. We're agreeing that this is what this time will be used for. And we've created this statement to ensure it.
Yeah. And if you don't have this kind of statement, then there's no way for you to create norms or commitments to the work.
And that goes to number 3, developing the framework.
Ready.
Yeah. The framework, and when I say framework, I don't mean agendas. Casey, we've talked about this a million times where we're seeing leaders say, well, what are you all doing next week for your PLC agenda? It's not an agenda. An agenda, the agenda expectation might be part of the framework, but when I say framework, what I'm talking more about are the norms, the expectations for before, during, and after the meeting, right? And modeling what this looks like for your teachers so that eventually they can do it themselves. And you as the leader become the facilitator. You've set up the framework where you know that you're at the end of the meeting. Part of the expectations are that the PLC lead is going to email everybody next steps and a summary recap of the meeting, next steps, and you're going to be CC'd on that. And so you might have some folks thinking, yeah, I don't have any teachers that want to do that. Maybe it's that teachers don't feel that they have the space to do that. Mm-hmm. But I guarantee there's got to be at least 1 or 2 teachers in a school community that are yearning for autonomy and leadership. Yep. And this is a great way to give that to them.
Yeah.
I think that a framework there's a lot of front loading that goes into that. Leaders, I'm going to go back to what I'm doing on Thursday. So this specific school is focusing on academic achievement. So we're going to be using a student inquiry protocol and data analysis of student work. So teachers in this PLC are eventually going to learn how to analyze student work, develop skill, find the skill gaps, and then develop next steps and come back to the table. Leaders are going to partake in that inquiry protocol on Thursday, because they need to know what it's like for teachers to do it. That's how we move away from the top down. This is how you do it. This is what we agreed upon, to more of a collaborative PLC where the leadership is sharing roles and responsibilities. But in order to do that, teachers have to know what the framework is and what it looks like.
Yeah.
I have an article on my, did I publish it yet? I've got something coming out that walks through each of these. I think I published it. It's walks through each of these steps before, during, and after. What are the expectations? What should you be thinking about? Putting it all out on the table so that you're really crossing your T's and dotting your I's to ensure that you've created something very compact with little room for misunderstanding, little room for communication. And, it's all driven by, starts with the data, develop that vision, and then what type of framework you're looking for.
Yeah. I love that you're kind of thinking about or sharing how your framework is dependent upon your data and your vision. And also, I want to hone in on this idea that just because some of our teachers may seem like master teachers, they may be lead teachers in their grade level, does not mean that they inherently possess the leadership skills necessary to be able to facilitate this kind of work. And that's why the modeling piece and teaching them and providing them this kind of framework is so important. They have to have something to go by.
I say make no assumptions. That's one of the biggest things that I will share with leaders. Make no assumptions that your teachers know how to do this. Yep. Eventually they will, right? Eventually they'll know what this looks like and sounds like and should be like, but they truly need an example of that. And so that starts with, working alongside educators and saying, hey, listen, we're going to learn this together. We're going to engage in this work together. And eventually that transformational leadership begins to take place because teachers see that leaders are on boots on the ground with them, as opposed to being this is what you do, this is how you do it. They're really part of that work. And again, there's front loading that goes into this, but once your teams have it down, you're saving time and energy.
Yes, 100%. So we have to decide in the beginning of the school year, what are we putting our time and effort into? Like, what are we prioritizing? What are we putting our time and effort into? What's going to have longevity across the year? What's going to be sustainable? Because we cannot set the expectation that we're going to be implementing PLCs if we haven't done the foundational work that's going to set them up for success.
Absolutely. And your teachers, to take this seriously, they need to know that there was a process involved in creating this. You can't just say, we need to work on climate and culture because everyone's angry around here, right? You've got to ground it in something that they can't say this isn't necessary, because who can argue with data, right? And they have to they want to trust that they want to know that you have their best interest in mind and that this isn't going to be a waste of time. Mm-hmm. And to do that requires that planning and front loading and process of, locating the data that speaks to the need and then creating a vision statement with them. I recommend with them, but I know that it's not always feasible, but creating that vision statement and then saying, this is the framework. Let me mention that framework can be used for every single PLC meeting, and your teachers will fill it in with the content that they're using to drive the meeting. Mm-hmm. So that framework for parent engagement could be potentially the same framework used for data, analyzing student work to improve academic achievement. But because they're two different types of content, I guess you could say, for lack of two different topics, the information that fills in the framework is going to be different. But ultimately, once you set that up, then you don't have to be the hamster on the wheel. Like, oh, what am I going to do this week? What am I going to do this week? Finding resources and trying to just fill the time with something you saw last week that you think needs improvement today.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that something that you saw last week that needs improvement today is going to create a hamster wheel effect for leaders. And it's going to cause burnout for your teachers and leave them feeling confused. And that's ultimately where we lack teachers lack capacity. They have to have a clear understanding of what the target is, how we're going to get there, who contributes, how they contribute, etc. I want to have this conversation real quick before we end. And I think it's a touchy one, so bear with me. But probably a year ago, I did an episode titled, and you guys can find it. It's in my lives, but it's titled PLCs Just Say No. Basically, what I was saying was just say no to PLCs. And I wasn't saying, what I wanted to do was capture people's attention. Like, what? You're saying no to PLCs? You, of all people, who talk about PLCs and collaboration all the time.
Blasphemy, yeah.
Yeah. And really the idea is say no to PLCs if that's not what what you essentially are doing, because your teachers come at this with so many different experiences with PLCs and so many different understandings about PLCs, and you may have a different understanding of PLCs than 4 or 5 different teachers on your campus. Well, if we like start slapping the term PLC on everything, then it just becomes this, we're calling our grade level planning meetings a PLC when it's not that at all. So it is okay to not how do I want to say this? It is okay to not jump on the bandwagon of PLCs if you aren't ready to dive into that just yet. You can go ahead and start laying the foundation and utilizing these 3 things that Jana has talked about, even if you're not calling it PLC. If you want to say we want to have like a campus needs assessment team, and we're going to professionally learn around these things, we're going to follow these 3 non-negotiables, that's completely okay.
Absolutely, because if the PLC isn't doing the job that it's been created to do, then it's sending the message to the school community that this isn't important. And you're creating more work for yourself eventually to unravel those thoughts and feelings when it comes time for you to take it seriously.
Yep.
So start small, start with a small cohort. 2, 3 teachers who might engage in something very small, who might take on, 2 or 3 case studies with students, or, might utilize, might create surveys for teachers and, just implement these surveys, or ask teachers what their thoughts or feelings on, climate and culture, and come back to the table and discuss results. You can certainly plant seeds for PLCs if right now does not seem like the time to set them off. But at some point, if you're engaging in that work and planting those seeds with your teachers, and then don't follow through with what's next, then again, you're going to have to work really hard to earn their trust back, to undo any thoughts or feelings that they have around it. So it's not about quantity. It's not about I have to have this many teachers to have it be a PLC. It's about the quality of the work and the prioritization of it to ensure that it becomes embedded in the fabric of the work, rather than this external thing that becomes, just added PT and training sessions.
Yep, 1000%. Okay, we could probably talk. I mean, I could just keep going and keep going about this.
We can, yes.
We're gonna wrap up. What would you hope that our audience would most take away from tonight's session?
I think the hope from tonight's session is that there's clarity around what a PLC is, what it is not, and that if you're thinking about revamping your PLCs, or you're thinking about what these, tweaking what you have, or bringing them to your school community if you don't have one, think of what you need for data, vision statement, and framework, and just start there. You could dedicate 1 or 2 days before the school year, or I can't believe we're already in August. I know some of you are talking, starting very soon, but if you can certainly engage your teachers, see who might be interested in really hitting the pavement with this, starting small, and sort of testing it out like a test run.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jana, thank you for joining tonight.
Thank you so much.
Tell our audience where they can find you and what you can do to partner with them in the future.
Sure. You can find me at www.janaleeconsulting.com. All of my socials are on there. My email is on there. My subscription service, my monthly newsletter where I love to share just, the tips and tricks and what I'm hearing on the ground, summaries of what I'm writing about and case studies and all of the goodies. So dig in, start there. You'll learn more about me. You'll be brought to my socials, various ways for us to connect. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So guys, just know you've got people out there who can step into this work with you. Jana can step into this work with you. I can step into this work with you. And we love to partner with schools to be a coach and thinking partner and make change actually happen instead of it being this big, broad vision that you feel like, I don't even know how to tackle that. I don't know the steps to take. We've got you covered in one way or another. So definitely reach out to Jana, reach out to me, and then be sure to come back next week. I'm going to be talking next week about how to develop an elevator pitch as an instructional leader. And I'm going to be talking about multiple different roles. So instructional coaches, principals, assistant principals, district administrators, you name it. I'm going to be talking about why it's important for you to have an elevator pitch, because as Jana mentioned earlier, we cannot make any assumptions that people understand what our role is and what it is that we do. So come back next week. You're going to hear all about that. Jana, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, guys, we will catch you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey there, thanks for joining this episode. I would love for you to do me 3 solid favors before you head out. Number 1, subscribe to this show. I've got a lot of great guests and content coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it. Number 2, share this show. Share it with your like-minded colleagues and friends and those leaders who are eager to build cohesive, vision-driven teams. And finally, connect with me on all the social media platforms. You can find me at Catch Up with KC on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Until next time, go off and create teams that leave people feeling inspired, empowered, and eager for more each day.